and me and another gentleman were pretty much the only ones running the business, and just working a lot. And next thing you know, I have a kid. I'm with my wife at the time. We're still rocking and rolling and working, and that's all I ever knew. Wasn't taking vacations, just worked. And next thing you know, I found myself staring at a divorce, and it was a tough time for me, financially, mentally. We just kind of, neither one of us knew each other because I'd given so much to this business.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your hosts Nate and Brian are hanging out with you here today, and we're going to be talking with Dave Daffan, and he's going to be sharing his story about what he has done and what he has made of himself and his organization, moving from behind the wheel to behind the desk and everything in between. We're excited to hear his story and talk to him, but before we do that, we want to break down this idea for you, and for that, we're turning to Brian with our quote.
I just removed everything that was not the David, Michelangelo. Yeah, it's hearkening back to an earlier episode where you brought that quote up, but it was a great quote as Matt, our boss here, went to Italy and saw the David, and the David is the statue that Michelangelo himself created. And somebody asked him specifically, how did you make such a beautiful, perfect statue? And he kind of alluded to the fact that he didn't create the statue. He just removed everything that wasn't the statue as he chiseled away. And this episode being largely about culture and about the spirit of the team, I think that it fit the episode well, being that in a team, you do a lot less adding of great pieces and a lot more of removing of not so great pieces. Like protecting a culture usually means removing pieces that don't fit that culture.
Yeah, Brian, that is a great quote. I'm glad you brought it up in its entirety and its actual format, as opposed to just the illustration that we used. But in I believe that was John Perez's podcast, the From Homeless to Homeowner by 25 podcast episode, and that was a great story with John. And in his case, it was really about removing the pieces that weren't David, about himself. Whereas in this episode, we're planning on talking with Dave about removing the pieces of an organization. Now, certainly a lot of that has to do with his own story, but you'll hear through the conversation that I believe we're going to have the transformation that took place in his organization by starting to make some changes. A lot of those being removing the barriers or the ideas that we hold fast to that nobody really has any idea why we're doing it, other than this is just what we've always done. And that's always a dangerous thing. And any organization, any person for that matter, can really get stuck in that same mentality. I mean, look at yourself. Brian, look at you, look at me, right? How many times do you and I actually think about why we do what we do personally? Right? When's the last time that you took time and thought about, is my family life the way that I want it to be? Am I being intentional? Or have I allowed myself just to get into a habit or a pattern of like, well, I mean, this is just what we do. Okay, well, that's not what we do here. That's not waste no day mentality. That is complacency. That is
cruise control.
Cruise control, absolutely. And it's an ugly thing.
We keep both feet on the gas. We don't even put one on the brake. I don't have a brake in my car.
Yeah, it's an ugly thing. And you know what? I would encourage everybody out there to do something tonight. Make it tonight. Whenever you're listening to this podcast, make it tonight. Take today and generate 2 ideas of how you can make something different at home. If you're married, figure out how you can care for your spouse and do something special for them. If you're not married, figure out a way that you can find a friend or find a routine or a habit or a hobby or something like that you can invest into that's going to make a difference. All right. And the point there is that Just don't be okay with being okay. That's not what we're about. That's not why we are here. We don't want to be in that cruise control mentality. We have to be constantly looking to get better. And sometimes that means that we have to cut things out that we have grown accustomed to.
That's right, buddy. Remove everything that is not the David. And whether that quote is a real Michelangelo quote or not, it has real substance to it. And that anything that's, man, I read a quote earlier this month, saying that I'm removing anything out of my life that isn't part of my plan for my life. And it was really sticky. I didn't know where it would fit on this episode, but I do wish I had written that quote down, as I usually do when I find a good quote in my notepad. But it fits very well when you're talking about culture, and that culture could be your plumbing team or HVAC team or electrical team, or it could be your crew that you hang out with and spend time with after work. If there are certain things you want to cut out of your life to have a better life, could very well be attached to some people that you have to cut out of your life. And if it's making your family a better culture at home, might be some certain TV shows that need to get cut out, or TV in general. If you want to get healthier and more fit and spend more time together as a family, maybe the TV needs to go. But the culture is something that you can usually control in most places you're at by your own hand.
And nobody is indicating that you have to be an owner to do that. You can start with yourself, because every organization is made up of people just like you, and it takes people just like you to make all the difference. And so we want to talk about that and so much more with our guest. We're going to welcome Dave Daffan to the show and put him in your passenger seat. Hey, our guest today is David Daffan. He grew up in Glen Rose, Texas, and found his way into the HVAC trade through his uncle, who initially started the business. He began his career as a service technician and installer, and through 20 plus years of hard work, he eventually became the installation manager, service manager, GM, and finally CEO. He gained full ownership of Daffan Cooling and Heating in the summer of 2021. David's commitment to his employees and their culture has been the reason for his success, as well as his company's professional growth and success in turn. With that, welcome to the show, Dave.
Hey, glad you guys could have me on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good to talk to you again. We, if anybody listened to our episode weeks ago, heard me complaining pretty loudly about the COVID policies of the great island of Maui. And how I got trapped in the airport for a full day, and then went to LAX and got some COVID tests under an overpass, and then flew back to Maui and relished the day that I got to meet the great people in the airport on Maui. Well, Dave and his wife, Shanae, is it Shanae?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Were two of the fantastic people that Amelia and I got to meet and hang out with while we were there. Had a great time hanging out with you guys that week. And turns out he owns an HVAC shop in just outside of Dallas, Texas. Was it Granbury?
Yes, sir. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, so we just said, well, let's have you on the show. Let's hear your story. And he had a pretty cool story of kind of going through the trenches and rebuilding back up, and a lot to do with culture, which is something we love to talk about here. Not as a whimsical thing, but as an actual systematic checklist thing that we have our finger on at all times is culture. It's making a place that people actually want to come to work, and not just a place where people punch time cards. So yeah, Dave, tell us your story and how you got into the trades, and let's hear it.
Okay, so probably like many, right out of high school, I went to a 4-year college. In the very beginning, probably halfway through my first semester, I realized that it wasn't going to be for me. Made good grades, and I was smart, and college, it was easy. I just did not enjoy it. I was going to be my dream was to be a police officer, work for the FBI or something really cool like that.
Nice.
And I started realizing that I probably wasn't going to make it. I didn't have a whole lot of financial support from my family, and wasn't raised in a well-to-do house or anything. We grew up on a farm. And so I had a good work ethic, you know, and I was no stranger to hard work and improvising and things like that. And I had a family member that was in HVAC, and he had mentioned to me, "Hey, have you ever thought about, you know, doing heating and cooling or something like that?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, hey, why don't you come do a ride along with me one of these days, weekends when you're home, and see what you think." So I did, and I really enjoyed it. And you know, he was doing really well at the time, and so I ended up quitting school. I finished the first semester and then just never went back. And before I got too much in debt, you know, that was the other thing I was looking at is, man, when I finish this school, I'm gonna be so far in debt, I'm not gonna be able to do anything. And so I started, you know, hanging out with him a lot. And he said, "Hey, I'm fixing to start my own business. You know, you want to basically be my first hire, start working for me?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it. And, you know, I'll help you out." So I joined a trade school, and I was going at night. And he started his own business, and I was basically his hire number one. And you know, quickly I was you know, helping with installs and things like that, and going to school at night. And we you know, started growing a little bit, and hiring some more people, some installers in the office, and another technician. And we're just kind of rocking along, and the business is growing. And we kind of fell into that trap, I think, that a lot of people do, where, you know, it's all about hard work, right? And so it was working 80-hour weeks, and, you know, 3 or 4 weeks straight on call. And, you know, I quickly realized that I was pretty much miserable, and I was not enjoying it. And so I quit, and I went off to do, you know, something else for, I don't know, probably a month. And I didn't enjoy that either. And he said, "Hey, you know, let's make some changes. Why don't you come back, and I'll give you a portion of the business if you'll come back and help me out." Because I was a pretty good technician, even though I was pretty young. I started, you know, I was only 19 at the time. And so I came back, and, you know, he gave me a small percentage of the business, and we made a few changes, and things were better, and we just kept growing and growing. And of course, I was married. I didn't have any kids or anything at the time, but you know, just hard work is really all I knew. And so, you know, I wanted things, and the business was great to me. I was making great money because I was working so many hours, and was able to build my own house. Even, you know, age of, I think I was 20, 21. I built my first house, and, you know, I was doing pretty good.
Wow.
And then, yeah, we just, you know, that's all I really knew, though, was just work. You know, we were just working all the time. And then slowly but surely, you know, and it was my uncle that I actually worked for, the guy I mentioned, and he was kind of starting to disappear a little bit from the office. And the next thing you know, he's gone all summer and taking lots of trips. And me and another gentleman were pretty much the only ones running the business, and just working a lot. And next thing you know, I have a kid. You know, I'm with my wife at the time, and we're still rocking and rolling and working and working and working, and that's all I ever knew. Wasn't taking vacations, just worked. And next thing you know, I found myself staring at a divorce, and it was a, you know, tough time for me, financially and mentally. We just kind of, neither one of us knew each other, because, you know, I'd given so much to this business, and, you know, like a lot of guys do, you know, everybody falls into that trap where, you know, you have goals and you want something. And you'll pretty much give up anything to get it. And that's kind of where I was, and what I thought I was doing the right thing. And about that same time, my uncle decided he wanted out of the business as well. And so he sold his portion of the business to a guy named Tom Peregrino, who was also kind of a partner at the time. He was running sales and operations. And so he took over, and then I still had a small portion of the business as well. And quickly we realized, you know, hey, we better make some changes, or, you know, this thing's not going to go too far. And that's when we started, you know, following. He had heard about Dave Ramsey from somebody. So I went to a Dave Ramsey entree leadership. I think it was actually the first one in San Antonio. Went to that and saw kind of how he ran his business, and all of his teachings. And, you know, we both immersed ourselves into that book, Entree Leadership, and all of his ways. And man, it really just changed our business. And the next thing you know, we joined ACA, started talking to bigger contractors and, you know, people that were doing it right, or at least appeared to be doing it right. And we made some more changes. And then our next thing you know, our business is getting turned around. We're making good money. Everybody's doing well. The culture is a little bit better. And then I forget what year it was. It might have been 2012 or 13. I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to take my family on a vacation in the summertime. I've never done that before. And so I went on a vacation up to Colorado. It was awesome. We had a great time. And then while I was up there, I realized, unless the people that work for us can, experience the same things with their family, that this business is probably, we're going to have high turnover. Nobody's going to want to stay. Everybody's going to be burnt out exactly like I was, in the beginning. And so when I came back, I told my partner, I said, hey, why can't everybody experience this? And he agreed. And so we implemented a vacation strategy, even for technicians, during the summertime. And so now our guys are taking vacations in the summer.
So what did that look like?
What we did originally was we just said, hey, I think it was maybe like by May 1st, we passed around the calendar based off seniority. It might have been April. And based off seniority, and everybody gets a week. If you want to take a week with your family and go somewhere, you have to take a full week so that it doesn't mess up our on-call rotation and things like that. So, and that first year, I think a couple guys did it and they enjoyed it. And the next year, a few more did it. And now most everybody that works for us that has a family, they take a vacation during the summertime. What we realized was, it was hard and we were missing out on some revenue because, here in Texas, the majority of our business comes, 3 to 4 months out of the year. But, we started realizing, hey, these people that work for us and our team members are way more valuable than any customer or any, great week that they might be able to produce, long term. So we just kind of bit the bullet and did it. And I'd say it's been a good thing. And, now everybody pretty much takes a vacation during the summertime. Nobody abuses it. And, everybody understands that, enjoy your week off. And then when you come back, it's time to, to get back at it. So it's been great.
Oh, that's great.
I think
make sure you edit out all the part where they let their HVAC people take vacations in the summer. Okay.
I don't want to step on any toes or anything. So it works great for us. I understand that. That wouldn't work for a lot of people. We just found a way to make it work. Because I do realize that, our key to our business is our employees and our team members, just not the customers. I know that's probably the opposite of what most people will say. And we actually have, some core values that we put down years ago that, our business abides by. And one of those is phenomenal care of our employees, as well as our customers. So, and that's really what we strive to do, is take better care of our employees than we do our customers, because everybody knows, right? If you take good care of them, they're going to take better care of your customers.
Sure. Yeah, that is something we definitely teach here, and I'll teach our leadership team here and try to abide by is the fact that if as a management team, is anyone in a leadership position, your number one customer is not the client. Your number one customer is the technicians you lead.
Absolutely.
Their number one customer is the client.
Yeah, and that's what's cool. To kind of rewind a little bit about meeting you in Hawaii is, I was kind of under the impression, or maybe a little bit of arrogance, that hey, our company's awesome and nobody does it quite like us. And then I met you, and you started talking about your podcast, and so I checked into it and started listening to you guys. And there's a lot of great companies out there, that are changing this industry for people for the better. That really care about culture and take care of your employees. And there's obviously some, I won't say bad ones, but there's some that their priorities maybe aren't where they probably should be.
Sure. Yeah. You can say bad ones. There are plenty of bad ones. And
and so
a lot of us and people listening have worked for those bad ones. And one thing it helps do is, when people who have been at those bad companies get into leadership positions in good companies, hopefully they take those lessons of things that they didn't like and they implement the opposite in policies at the new company. And it's something that certainly helped a lot of us here build what we have here, which was, and I'll tell you, this is something I did not like about being in a truck. So let's see if we can at least make it more livable, if not change it all completely.
Exactly. And that's something we're kind of tackling now. Last year on call rotation, how do we make it better? Because every technician out there, one of the things probably the thing that I'll say they hate the most, is being on call. Made some changes to it over the years. It's, improved it for sure. I don't really know where we go from here, but, the current situation we have, with our on-call rotation works pretty well for us too. So, we, not to beat a dead horse, we started doing a deal where if you're on call for the weekend for us, you get the next Friday off. So then essentially you get a 3-day weekend, the weekend after you're on call. So, man, the guys, they went from hating it to now they won't trade on call for nothing because they want that 3-day weekend,
Yeah.
And that kind of goes.
We have that in all three companies here, but in the plumbing, well, it's a different animal in plumbing because our guys all year round, if you're on call on the weekend, you run probably 12 to 16 hours per day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So in plumbing, we actually give you Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off the next week. But
wow,
it's well deserved because you are not seeing your family that weekend. But it was funny. I tell this story often when I was first asked to step up and manage the plumbing division here. I went to my wife and said, "Hey, we have this opportunity." And Amelia's first thing she said was, "So you're not going to get your 4-day weekends anymore?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Honey, I know they seem like a 4-day weekend to you." But that weekend before where I got to work 40 hours in 3 days.
Yeah, it's tough. And then, everything you miss out on, especially when you got, little ones at home, doing sports and things like that. That's a tough life, to give it all up basically for a job. And so that's our goal, is to try to change that, where this is not a job, it's a career, and people actually enjoy coming to work here every day,
So Dave, let's dig into some of your past there, as most of our listening audience is probably frontline people who are currently in the truck right now, whether it's HVAC, plumbing, or electrical. And so I think it's always fascinating when somebody has experienced that and then they've grown their way into ownership or higher levels of management. And so I want to kind of ask you about that journey. Was it just good fortune that allowed you to go from, behind the wheel to behind the desk, or was there something within you or some action or mentality that you took that made the difference?
What I would attribute it to is, back in the early days, or, kind of before ownership changed, the first time back in 2010, I think it was, I was really the only really good tech we had at the time. And so we had several young guys, and I was spending a lot of time just mentoring them. But our business was growing, and so we couldn't hire enough young guys fast enough, to keep up with the business. So I pretty much really just, you could call it good fortune, I guess, kind of lucked into having to train all these guys. And next thing you know, I'm kind of leading a team of really young guys, just because I had so much more experience than they did. And then, so, I'm in charge of the on-call schedule and the training and things like that. And, going behind them on callbacks and helping them. And so, I just kind of grew into that, really. And then I was immersed, by our previous owner into, entree leadership and things like that. And I wouldn't say it was by the will, really. And some of that was kind of forced, in the beginning. I thought, this stuff's stupid, I don't want any part of it. But the more I started studying it and, listening to people, that followed, those values and things like that, I learned that, this is the way. And, the better I can make, my teammates, the easier my job gets. Right. So I just started training, those guys the best I could, and hiring, good quality people, to make our jobs easier. And it really worked. And then we just kind of added to that, over the years, and, by just following different mentalities and kind of robbing and duplicating. We started, going to a lot of different trainings, and we'd go do a lot of site visits and, pick up a few things here and a few things there. And then that's kind of how we've grown our business, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's always a good practice. That's something Brian and I and some of the others here have started doing of lately, is trying to get out more and expand our network and see things even across the country or just outside of our current locale here to see what other people are doing. And it's really exciting to see somebody who's doing it really well, and you come across them and, you don't have to see everything. You can just get 1, 2, maybe 3 points that you can take back to your own organization. It makes all the difference.
Yeah, in the beginning, that's what was kind of hard was, maybe I had a little bit of an arrogance about, hey, our business is awesome. I don't need to go visit anybody else. Why do I want to see what they're doing? And then once I started doing that, I realized, hey, they got this one thing or these 2 things that is better than what we do. Why not change it? And we, in the beginning, we called it the sacred cow killer. We had a year where we tried to kill as many sacred cows as we could. And we changed our,
I like that.
Yeah. And because, we started asking ourselves, why do we do this? And nobody really had a good answer for it. And so there had to be a better way, right? And so we just started kind of diving into those things and figuring out, what was a better way. And that may have been from, reading a book or listening to somebody speak at a conference, or, doing a site visit and seeing, what somebody else does.
All right, Dave. So we're going to put you on the spot here. What is 1, maybe 2 things that you think your organization does really well?
Ooh, I wanted to hear a few, like 3 sacred cows they kill. All right.
Yeah.
We'll do
like
names first.
Well, the sacred cows was back in 2010. I can't name a bunch of them. It'd take me a few minutes to figure out what we changed. But so what do we do better? I would say, in our area, we probably do have the best culture, just because of that mentality of taking care of our employees. And I really would rather call them teammates, better than anybody else. And a lot of that goes back to, the Dave Ramsey hiring process, is adding good quality people to our organization. So that would be number 1 for me, would just be our team is better than everybody else's. Number 2, we pay better than everybody else in our area. And a lot of that has to do with performance-based pay. But, we're willing to, if you're going to be a high performer, then, we're going to take really good care of you. The third one, I would say really is, it kind of goes back to our teammates, but our benefits. I mean, we have a lot of benefits here that most companies our size may not have, or certainly people a little bit smaller than us don't have. And we've had a lot of them for a long time, health insurance, vacations in the summer, the 401ks, things like that, life insurance policies for everybody. We do a lot of family events. We try to have a lot of fun here at the company. So yeah, I really just say all around, but to me, all that really boils back to culture. That's probably one of the number 1 things that a company can do is establish a culture that you want.
So I understand there's a part of your story that is a little bit more difficult to talk about, and I don't want to press you into personal areas that you're not comfortable with. But I believe you mentioned off air that there was a time when, well, you said on air there was a time when you were staring at a divorce and what kind of came out of that. And so if we can take a step backward before we move forward into what that culture is and how that refined and changed everything, start us back there at the low point and then work us forward.
So I would say back in, my son was born in 2005. So really 6, 7, somewhere in there. I was just working, that's really all I did was work. And, I had some friends that I had some hobbies, hunting and 4-wheeling and things like that we would go, take a trip here and there and do stuff.
And what was your role in the company? Like, were you a straight up technician? Or are you in management? Are you an owner?
Yeah. At that time I was just straight up technician. So I worked, all the time, 80 hours a week was nothing for me. And really maybe it wasn't by choice. It was just kind of the way we were set up. And it was that mentality of, we got to get it while we can. Right. And so I would, and I wouldn't say no, and like I said, I grew up on a farm. I was used to hard work, and that wasn't a problem for me. But at some point it kind of becomes a mental game, and my wife at the time, we really got to where we didn't know each other. She was working, I was working, we had a kid going to daycare every day, and we'd pick them up from daycare. She would pick them up from daycare, and I'd come home, eat dinner, take a shower, go to bed, do it all over again, And a couple of years into that, I realized, we realized we didn't even know each other, And so I would say, I took the easy way out at the time. Instead of work, I didn't want to work on it. At that time, my heart was hard, and I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And she kind of agreed. And so, we got a divorce and went our own ways, and we actually get along better now than we ever have. So that's great. So, but yeah, so that, next thing you know, I'm a single guy, that has a great job, makes a lot of money. And, but then I realized that, it wasn't all about the money. It was really that going through that process. And also seeing other people in the trade, that, it seemed like everybody you talked to at the time was, every salesman that would come in or a rep or something, they'd all talk about being divorced, and, they go hang out in the bars and things like that. And I realized that, next thing you know, if I don't make some changes, I want to be that guy. I want to be 40 or years old and, on my second or third or fourth, marriage or whatever. And, I didn't want that. And so, just having conversations with the team at work, and trying to surround myself with good people, we were able to change this business into something that, we don't just use and abuse our people, because I kind of felt like, maybe some resentment at the time that I was used and abused, and, at work. And so, I didn't want that for people that worked for me or under me. And I realized we also had, right in there somewhere, we had about 3 technicians all quit at the same time, like literally on the same day, and go to a big manufacturing facility to be maintenance guys. And then I'm left, as the only technician at the time. All right, well, I guess I'll run all these calls, and I tried to do that too. But then I started digging into why'd they leave, and it was just the way we were, the way the company was built, really.
Yeah. So the unfortunate events of what you had to endure and all the things that went with the pain and agony there really seems to have set you up for a refinement as to how you would then hold that perspective towards others and what you wanted to make different in the company from there forward.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those experiences have helped me. I've got some technicians that actually last week had a conversation with one of them about, he needs to take more time off. I think his wife was in the hospital with some minor issues, and he was back at work the next day. I'm like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, you're going to end up divorced if you don't watch it, because I've been there, and to him, working or money was the most important thing, and you kind of got to change people's perspective sometimes to what's really important. So some people that is money, and you won't be able to change it, but from my experience, you realize
there's definitely also the it's not necessarily the money people. Like I'm that same way. Like when we first had our oldest, I wanted to be back at work like the next morning. And I had to really be pushed to like stay in the hospital or stay home a few extra days, and it wasn't the money. It's just like, this is where I would feel fulfilled, is when I'm working. It's where I feel like that's where I'm supposed to be. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. And, everybody I grew up around who, they have a great affection for not working. Well, they're not doing a whole lot now. So, that's not what you want to go back to. So any day it just seemed like any day that's not Saturday, Sunday, when you're not working, you just don't feel right. And that's the mindset that has to shift, is the empty feeling that we as men in particular, and technicians can get when we're just doing family time on a day that's not a weekend day. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, that kind of goes back to the mental issue, that these guys have to, and any technician I would recommend it, when you're off, you really need to try to unplug, and reset your mind, because this business is tough, whether you're plumbing, HVAC, install, service, it's a grind, it can be. And to me, it's more of a mental issue than it is physical. But and that's what I explained to him. I said, man, I understand what you're wanting to do, and because he goes, well, I don't want to leave the team hanging, which, while I greatly appreciate that, and that's hard to find somebody with that mentality. I also don't want, a couple of years down the road for him to say, hey, by the way, my wife and I are getting a divorce, So let's keep things in perspective.
Speaking of perspective, we want to hear about, we want to hear about the perspective of your employees. So, I mean, if you could put your shoes on, put your work boots on, and kind of put yourself back on the ground as a technician, and we went in there to your organization, and we started interviewing, like, hey, what makes the difference here? Why do you stay here? What's so special about this place or the team? What are some of those culturally defining things that we would hear from your frontline people?
What I'd probably say is it kind of goes back to those core values that we have, which is, and I'll just give them to you real quick, but we call it the 5 F's here at the company. And so one of them is followers of Christian values. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a follower of Christ, but you need to know that this company will follow those values. Number 2 is phenomenal care of each other. And I know phenomenal didn't start with an F, but we kind of did a play.
I was just thinking in my head, did he see phenomenal? Or?
He did say he didn't finish school, so yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I quit a little bit too soon, but yeah. So we just changed it to start with an F. So then we do phenomenal care of clients. So our customers, we're going to take great care of our customers. And then we call ourselves financial Jedis, and that kind of goes back to the Ramsey way. Our business is debt free. So to me, what that means to a teammate is that, their paychecks are going to be cashed, and we're going to have, the nicer vehicles and the nicer things. And, because we do, take good care of our money. So, and then the other thing is fun. We want it to be a fun place to work. And so we do a lot of activities together, families or individuals, during the work week, on the weekends. So I think, if you look at that as the center of everything, then people enjoy that. If I was an employee here and I could rewind, that would probably be my answer. We don't hire a lot of guys that come from other places, so I don't know that they would have a true perspective maybe on, or at least from other AC shops anyway, of maybe what it would be like to work for one. But as far as other industries, the ones we do have that came from other places, they constantly tell us, how much more they appreciate working here. In just the culture.
Absolutely. That's a similar atmosphere that we're trying to emulate here as well, creating that atmosphere that people are they're in love with, and there's nothing else like it out there. And that is, I think, so needed in the industry. For far too long, there's just been kind of this, drill sergeant mentality. Hey, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and suck it up, buttercup. Here we go. And there's certainly times to be like that and to get things done. But there's so much more that is to be had than just that type of, back beaten by the whip type of work environment. And shout out to you for having those types of values built into who you are and the DNA of your business.
Yeah, in the beginning it was tough, because I was raised that way, and so that's all I knew was, the back-breaking efforts and the, just suck it up and do it, and, don't be a wuss. And it was hard in the beginning to not treat people the same way, even though sometimes I have those thoughts,
Right.
but I won't keep using the same cliche terms everybody else does about millennials and whatnot, but I think it really just boils down to people. They have choices, and so if you don't create a business or a career that they will choose to work at, then, maybe they're going to choose to go somewhere else. So we got to constantly, be on top of that and in this industry, and make it, where it's attractive to people. I'm on the board at a local trade school, and I told them in one of their meetings, hey, this HVAC is not sexy. Nobody is talking about, being in HVAC or plumbing, in high school. And so we got to figure out a way to change that. And I really think it's, it's my business's responsibility to do that, as well as yours and everybody else in the country,
Absolutely. And I like what you say there with your core values. Not your core values, but your core priorities. And that's something that's very clear in my mind. My family comes before my job. There's no doubt about that. There may be times when we have to make sacrifices, for the moment, but it's not going to be a long-term strategy. And I would never allow a job to take over position number 2, which is currently my family, because of that.
Yeah, and don't, you technicians out there listening, don't misunderstand. There's, obviously there is a time, to suck it up and, knock some work out. But there's, you can't just do that, day in, day out for years on end, because it will affect you mentally, and it may lead to other issues. But, we just, my guys even here, they have tough weeks and months and things like that, but there's overall, we try to change things as quickly as we can, to get somebody back in the right mindset if they start going the wrong direction. So.
Absolutely. So, Dave, as you say you serve on a board there, and you're I'm sure you're in the same kind of pinch as far as like trying to find people to get into the industry and to love the trades, to learn the trades. What have you found has been effective in getting non-trades people to jump in?
Man, the where we've had the best luck really has just been, I'd say, referrals from current employees or past employees. They just know a guy or a friend or a buddy, whatever, and they say, hey, I know this guy that, I think he'd be a good fit here. What do you guys think about hiring him? And we'll interview him. And if it seems like a good fit, then, we'll put the time and the effort into training them and bring them on board. If it doesn't, then we won't do that. I'd said earlier, we don't hire a lot of guys from other shops. And the reason is, maybe most of them have been mistreated, but they don't really fit into our culture. You can tell real quick that they won't. And so I'm not willing to dilute that for the sake of, some monetary gain. So we'll just hold off and wait till we find somebody who will fit that. So.
Yeah, we're up against the same thing. When it's like the more you build your culture the way you think it should be, the more you conduct interviews that go nowhere.
Yes.
It's just it's more and more people don't fit the mold as you get the culture funneled down to where you want it. But I didn't. Yeah. We were talking about millennials for a second. It is funny that one of our plumbing team leaders and I were having a conversation about them potentially getting a bad rap as a result of several millennial hires we've made recently that are arguably some of the best guys on the team. And gals, I'll say, with one of our electrical installers who just got into her own truck. I guess they can be flighty in terms of if they don't get what they want, they have no problem walking. They have no problem up and leaving a company. But if they are getting what they want, man, we are finding them to be extremely hard workers. And they are very team oriented. I mean, they are the people you want to build your culture with because they're so apt to volunteer their time for the good of the group, which is something that can be really hit or miss with a team of contractors, a team of skilled tradespeople. That can be very hit or miss, and it seems like a lot of the millennials we're hiring recently are very, very team oriented, and they want what's best for the group, not necessarily just what's best for themselves. And that's something that we're finding more in that millennial group than we found even in our own age groups.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too. I think we've got 14 techs, and out of that group, I mean, I bet our average age is probably 28, 30 maybe, and there's like one guy that blows that average out of the water. So. Overall, we are a really, really young company. And so most of those guys are millennials, and we kind of, we accept that. And we also, just got to kind of mold your business for that. If I only hired, 40 to 60-year-old hardworking dudes, that my business probably wouldn't last very long. So then it probably wouldn't be a fun place to work either.
So Dave, as we turn our eyes forward here and we kind of consider the future, what are some things that you're dreaming about now? It sounds like you're the type of guy who's constantly looking for that next better idea, that next refinement, or that next way of making something just a tad bit better than it was before. What are the things that you're focusing on? What are the challenges you're coming up across as you're reviewing and reviewing the business and the culture and everything that you're doing? What is it that you're focusing on to try to make even better?
So mine's probably slightly more unique. We actually just purchased this business 100% this last summer. I was presented with an opportunity to be able to buy it, and I was in a position where I could, and so I just did that this last summer. And so going forward,
yes, congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was left with a great foundation, by the previous owner. So going forward really is to continue our success, but not only that, but also obviously to grow. But I think probably our biggest hurdle in the next year or two is to come up with a good, solid training plan.
Yeah.
In-house. We use a lot of people, that, we'll meet with once or twice a week on Zoom meetings and things like that. But we really got to focus on some more in-house training, just to make things easier for everybody. Because, talking about the millennials, a lot of them, they want more and more knowledge, and they're, thirstier for that kind of stuff than maybe I was. And so, we have a hole there. So I need to work on that. That needs to be my focus.
100% behind you on that one. That's an idea that we have already implemented here. And then we kind of sort of walked away from it a little bit. And I think it's time for us to get back to it, because there's just such a hunger, not only for additional training within the organization, but to have your own specialized training center, school, career development plan that you can take somebody into your organization who knows very little and train them up your way. Is just so valuable.
Yeah, and that's something a lot of guys around me. I'll run into a guy at the supply house or something that has a smaller shop, and they always ask me, man, where are you guys finding all these people at? And I tell them, hey, we just train them ourselves, but we need probably a little more efficient way to do that. Typically for me to see a guy excel in this business, it takes about 2 years under our current model. I'd like to speed that up to where they feel really comfortable in their job position, in 6 months to a year.
Yeah. Career in a year. We love that idea. And kudos to you as you pursue that. That's fantastic.
Thanks.
Well, hey, Dave, as we kind of bring things in for our landing here, one thing that we're always looking for is, as leaders, whether you sit at a desk or behind a steering wheel, or you have a phone in your hand or a pair of gauges, we're always looking to get better. That's part of what we do here at the Waste No Day podcast. We don't want to waste any day. And so as we talk and interview different leaders and different people throughout multiple organizations around the country, we want to hear what you're doing to make yourself better. Like, what are the things that you're listening to? What are the ideas that you've implemented in your life? What are the disciplines that you hold fast to make yourself better?
So for me, it's, I work out regularly, probably not as regular as I should. And I follow. Obviously,
I work out regularly too. It's about once a quarter.
Yeah, I'm human. Maybe not as dedicated as Brian is, I think. But
you saw me doing push-ups in the sand.
Yeah. So I try to work out regularly. I do read. Brian had mentioned to me about traction the other day, and, I started reading that after he had mentioned that to me. And it's funny, he said, do you guys do traction? I said, no, I don't think so. Well, I found the book in our company library, and it's got all kinds of notes from our previous owner. And yeah, we are. So,
well, it is funny because you mentioned the killing of the sacred cows, and that is, at least our implementer is really big on the sacred cows. Did you get to listen to the Mike Payton traction episode? Yeah,
I did, and I really enjoyed that too. So
he gives a pretty good breakdown on what traction is and what it can do for a team.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing is, what I'd recommend to a lot of people is join some kind of a group. We're members of Service Nation Alliance. I don't know if I can say that or not, but
absolutely.
They just received a Contractor of the Year for last year, which was
awesome.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, great honor from those guys. But yeah, that, so that immerses us in, other like-minded businesses. And so you can bounce stuff off of each other. And we're on, there's an advisory group you can get into. And so you constantly have access to other business owners that may be struggling with the same thing. So, just, you can lean on each other. And cause this is not an easy trade or business. And, so yeah, just don't be scared to ask for help. There's a lot of good people out there that'll ask you, or, that'll help you when you want it. So.
Love that. Any other personal self-development things that you're working on, Dave? Not everybody has the opportunity to join a group or be a part of that type of backbone. But what about the guys on the front lines, the guys and gals who are looking to just learn more, do better, become better, and possibly work their way up?
Well, I would say is, a lot of that, listening, they can listen to, there's tons of podcasts. This one is a really good one, probably one of the better trade specific ones I've listened to.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say that if we were staying in Hawaii right now.
Yeah, exactly. Just really, all of that stuff, you guys, we've all heard it. There's the mental game, the physical game. You look good, you feel good, you perform good, right? So, wear the proper uniform, look great every day. It's a mindset, and I don't know, I can't explain it, but, just really, you got to be well-rounded. If a guy hits the gym every day, but doesn't thirst for anything knowledge-wise, then he's going to be a buff dude, but he's probably not going to be a very good technician, or vice versa. So I think you just got to do a little bit of everything.
That's what we're about here is focusing on getting better, and that's in every area that you can. That's at work, that's at home, that's being a father, a husband, a mother, a wife, whatever it is that you do in your entirety, whether it's at work or at home. We want to get better at that because we fully believe that better employers, better employees make for better homes make for better employees and employers, and that cycle just keeps on spinning.
Yeah, and really to kind of go back to your question is, I think really most people need to think of this as a career, not just a job. Somebody asked me the other day, hey, would you be happy when your kids get older if they work at McDonald's? And I said, absolutely. But my son better be a badass burger flipper, Yeah, I don't care what he does. You just be good at it, and you take pride in it, and, you'll be good.
Yeah.
So that's it's the mentality.
Love it. Well, Dave Daffan, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and kudos to you and your team for celebrating as one of the awards there in your organization for Contractor of the Year. We appreciate having good quality guests on our podcast who are running great operations or involved in great operations, as it makes all of us better. Even if we're competitors, even if we're right next door or across the country, it makes all of us better. It makes the industry better. And at the end of the day, the clients will receive better service because of it.
Yeah, thank you guys, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to chat with me a little bit.
Yeah, tell Sean Amelia and I said hi. It was good talking to you again, Dave.
Oh, I will. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, we hope you enjoyed this podcast with Dave. It was good to hear from him as he has had the journey of moving from technician to owner and everything in between. He's had the ups and downs. It wasn't an easy journey despite him summarizing it up for us in just a small podcast here. But so much more to hear about his story there. And we appreciate the fact that he embodies what we do here at Waste No Day. And now he is making that actually applicable to his organization. And you know what? You don't have to be an owner of an organization to do that. You can start right now wherever you are. You can choose to waste no day in your current position. And I guarantee you, even if it's not recognized in your structure, in your organization, even if nobody takes notice, you will notice and you will be better. And because of that, there will be value and there will be investment into the future. And so we continue to challenge you to look at life from that perspective, to be continually looking for ways to improve and take that next level, to take that next mountain, and to choose to wake up every single morning and waste no day.